What's up, my peoples? What's up, my peoples? I hope everybody's doing well today. I am right now getting ready to do this video that you see here, which is the DCEU Superman. And should have put up this cast around 4 o'clock, but I changed my mind because I wanted to just take the time out to just get it right. So permit me for a minute to just sort out the information before I go forward with this. All right, guys, just give me a second to get this done. Hope you guys had a good day today. And, these are the things that I loved about the DCEU. And there's something I have here, which I'll probably follow up on a little later on. Maybe you guys have the answer to that, but we'll see. I don't know. But right now, just getting the video ready. So got some interesting stuff for you guys to see. Oh yeah, we got some interesting stuff for you guys to see. So we'll try to get it to you right now. I'm still prepping for the video. Oh yes, there's a song coming out for those of you who follow music on my channel and you like my music and stuff like that. There's a song coming out right after this video is done, after this stream. Cool. Right after this stream is done, you guys can go ahead and check out the song that I got for you guys. All right. So there's all of that you guys can check out once I'm done. Let me get started with a piece of scripture with you guys. Of course, you can't see my face right now. Sorry about that. But that's because I'm in the middle of putting these things together. I'm in the book of Hosea. Hear this, O priests, and hearken, ye house of Israel. Listen, O house of the king, for judgment is towards you, because you have been a snare in Mizpah, and a net spread upon Tabor. And the revolters are profound to make slaughter, though I have been a rebuker of them all. You guys probably wondering what on earth is he talking about. This is directly related to the DCU once again. The priests are the people who do service. They're supposed to be the religious heads to bring forth service. And when the priests are not doing their job, the people tend to revolt. All right. So the people who are supposed to be giving service, when they're not doing it properly, the people tend to want to overthrow them and get people who can do the job properly. That makes sense? So that's what that is saying. That's what that is saying. I decided to use that scripture because I thought it was pertinent to our situation that we're dealing with at present. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is just structure. I'm just structuring things right now. Structuring things so we can get it in the right order. In the right order. And then we're ready to do the video. This is arbitrarily put together, I'm pretty sure. So I have to really work hard to get this stuff put together properly. Just a pity. This is just haphazardly put together here. Hold on 1 second, folks. We'll get there. We'll be with you shortly. So how's everybody doing? You can leave your comments in the chat section, of course. You can leave your comments in the chat section. I'll be with you shortly. Hearing is me editing the stuff as we speak. You know, I'm editing stuff. What it is. Everything takes patience, folks. Everything takes patience in this life. You gotta have patience sometimes. And so you just have to bear with me here. I try to just see my way through all these different things going on here. Just bear with me for a second. This will take only about a second. I know it's very, very annoying, but this is the way I would go sometimes. Let's see here. I myself don't have much patience, so this is very annoying to me, but you know. Everything takes time. Everything takes time. And when you mistype or you misdo something, it's very annoying. I take a lot of time to do videos. It takes forever to do a stupid video. You will be surprised how much time it takes to do a video. It takes a long time. So putting these things together. Should be done in a minute. Be done in a minute. Sometimes the computer does not act the way how I want it to act, which leads to more frustration. That's part of the deal. Okay, I think I'm done there. Okay, I'm done. I'm done. So we are talking about the DCEU Superman. And so I wanted to share with you guys this information I have on that. All right, great. I wanted to share a little bit on some things you guys may have overlooked when you're looking at the DCEU Superman. And some of the stuff you already know, I'm just vocalizing it for your benefit, all right? So let me just see what you guys are doing over here. once again, I'm not one of those people who dwells on negatives. I don't like dwelling on negatives at all. I like dwelling on positives. So you will never see me going on and on about stuff I don't like. I generally focus on things I like, and I try to keep it positive. And if people like things that I don't like, bless them. I don't usually I usually try to engage them or get in arguments over things I don't like. That's dumb. If I something I like, however, I would engage somebody and defend what I like. So that's why I leave people to be free to defend what they like. I'm not going to tell people what to like and what not to like. I'm not going to also waste time trying to convince people why I don't like something. Right? That's dumb. I would try to engage in people about something I like. So you will never find me trying to bash something to God's kingdom hell. I don't do that. I'm not into the hate thing. Right? So shout out to you, Dave Eason. It's nice to see you, man. I just saw you there. And this video is on Superman. So I know you're going to love this. This is about Superman. And I know people love Superman. Especially now. I mean, I am even, I love Superman as well because of, the meaning that's put behind it. Okay, so anyway, let me get into what I'm going to talk to you guys about. Shout out to all the people who will join this hangout. If there's some other people there, shout out to you. I'm just going to go into screen share here right now. I'm going to screen share. And let me just chat section here. Dave Ethan, man, shout out to you, my brother. How you doing? Is everything good? How was your weekend? Was it a good weekend for you? All right. Now, this is something that popped up in Facebook, and I loved it so much because this guy took the time to vocalize it. And for anybody who's a Superman fan, they would really love this. So there was always these allegations that Superman, at least Zack Snyder's Superman, he's emo Superman. He never saves anybody. He doesn't do anything good. He's always sour. He's an emo Superman. He's a dark Superman. I've heard all kinds of things about Superman. And I like that this gentleman called A Boy Has No Name, he highlights very much a lot of things. And a lot of people say Zack Snyder never got Superman. It's not my Superman. He doesn't get Superman. So this guy painfully took his time and actually, showed us the depth behind Superman and how much Zack Snyder got him. So I want to share this with you guys right now. Okay. So first of all, he says Clark's first scene in Man of Steel, his very first scene, he almost sacrificed himself to save 6 guys on an oil rig he does not know because Snyder just doesn't get him. He's being sarcastic, of course. And it's true. You remember the oil rig collapsed on Clark? We thought he was dead. Remember that? Or badly injured. And the rig exploded and he was on the rig. And when I first saw that, I was disturbed. I was like, how did he survive that? Because he sacrificed his life pretty much. And to me, that's the epitome of Superman. That's the epitome of heroism. And that's the first thing we see with Clark on Earth. You realize that? Of course, it was a scene where he was on the lobster boat and a human being saves his life, right? But I thought, look at that. We see him now do something for humanity and sacrifice himself for humanity. Of course, he probably knows he's indestructible anyway, so, but it's still cool to see. All right. It's still cool to see. And amazing. And that was our introduction to the Superman, right? Goes on to say, young Clark went against his dad's wishes again and risks revealing himself to save his friends because Snyder just doesn't get it. He just doesn't get Superman. You guys remember that from Man of Steel? I love that he's citing these things. He's citing each and every incident. And I'm going to show you guys even more than what he said. So let's just keep it going. I'm saying all of this just to let people know there's a point I'm making. There's a point I'm making. A lot of times the population says something about something which is not true. Not a populist opinion. It doesn't mean it's a true opinion. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it is not. All right, let's keep it going. Oh, and he went back and he saved a kid who just bullied him, because Snyder just doesn't get Superman. And even in the Aquaman film that's coming up, and the Shazam film, we saw bullying, right? But it first started in Man of Steel. Okay. And in my personal opinion, not trying to really bash on the upcoming movies, but in my personal opinion, the way how the bullying was done in Man of Steel on the two times to me was much more organic and real. When I saw Clark being bullied by what would later become his friend, this guy right here, he bullied him. And, interestingly enough, he comes back to save this kid's life. And what does the kid do? He reports it to his mom, and they come to report it to Clark's father and mother because they're afraid. Interesting, isn't it? And then you see the lashback with some more bullying where Clark is pulled from his own car, his dad's car, and he's bullied. And the kid wants to pick a fight with him because he hears he saved some people and he has this superpower. And all of a sudden, everybody's afraid of him. And so they want to beat his head in, right? People fear what they don't understand, right? And so it's interesting how the reaction to Clark, and we see this also in Batman v Superman, where people are trying to bully Clark, and we literally see them wanting to burn Clark. Well, they don't know it's Clark, it's Superman. They have Superman hung on a pole, and they light a fire and they light him. And by the way, that's a callback to Watchmen, where they actually did the very same thing with the superheroes. They lit a superhero on fire, right? For those of you who don't know, that's a Watchmen reference. But what's interesting about it is that it's consistent time and time again with Clark. Once people don't understand you, they hate you, or they start to become very aggressive towards you. And this is what they tried to portray in Aquaman. This is what they tried to portray in Shazam with Freddy. We didn't see it in Wonder Woman. We never saw bullying in Wonder Woman. We didn't see bullying in Suicide Squad per se. But that's the theme that we see. When you're different, people want to bully you. We saw it in The Accountant. If you guys do, I'm coming out of superhero films. The Accountant is kind of like a superhero film. It's kind of like a comic book film. There's actually a comic book that's put out by Warner Brothers on The Accountant. So it's kind of like a comic book movie. Maybe not superhero, but comic book movie. And he was bullied as well. Okay? And all I'm saying to you is this theme, which Zack Snyder started back in 2013, where everybody's talking about anti-bullying now and cyberbullying and all of that stuff with bullying. Snyder was the first to put it out there, if you guys do remember. Okay? I'm just saying. Okay? And in my opinion, more organic, much more real when I saw the bullying. But that's not the point. The point is, after being bullied, what does Superman do? Well, he's not called Superman then, but we can call him Superman, right? Superman saves the bully's life because he values life. He has been psychologically abused, and he's seen as an outcast. He's seen as a weirdo, and yet he saves the bully's life. And what does the bully do because his life is saved? Is he grateful? No. He goes and tells his mom, and his mom comes to tell Clark and Clark's parents. And she's afraid of Clark. And they talk about incidents that Clark has done. Because if Clark comes above the radar, guess who's going to come knocking at his door? That's right, the government of the United States of America. And they're going to take him away, and they're going to try and test him. Okay? This is the world we live in. This is the real world. I'm just saying. So, but Zack Snyder doesn't get Superman. The kid breaks the rules his parents told him to do to stay under the radar. Instead, he goes above the radar to save people's lives because he cares about lives. Just like Wonder Woman. He cares about lives. He can't help but save people. Right? But Zack Snyder doesn't get Superman. Superman, when he finds out what his roots are, ask any child who wanted to know who their parents were, who had a longing to know who they really were because they were adopted. Ask any child. When they find out who their family is, their parents. I have a cousin. He's living with his mom to this day and taking care of his mom and his sisters and brothers. He grew up with my grandmother, and he was not allowed to see his mother for many, many years. And when he finally got the opportunity to see his mother, he stayed with her. He stayed with her. He cared for her as a big grown man. And now he's happy and at peace because he has his mother. Imagine how Superman must feel. Imagine how Clark must feel to finally know who his father was, his mother was, where he came from, his heritage, his people, to understand his purpose, to understand why he always wanted to help people. So he's filled with joy. That's a deeper story, man. That's a deeper dive into Superman. But Zack Snyder doesn't get Superman. Christopher Nolan doesn't get Superman. David Goyer doesn't get Superman. And what a touching story. Not some fake emotional eliciting story. No, story with depth. You get what I'm saying? I'm trying to say something here without saying it. Let's keep it moving. Then Superman had the nerve to stop Lois from bleeding internally. This Snyder guy is a trip. Sarcasm, of course. He saves Lois. But everybody says, oh, he only saves Lois. What was happening in the bar when he went to the rescue of the young lady who was being sexually harassed? You know, people don't realize that Zack Snyder went on so many different levels. He dealt with sexual harassment in the workplace. How many people know that? How many people know that in BVS, there was actually a sexual harassment book inside of the Daily Planet, which is why the Daily Planet people conducted themselves a certain way? How many people noticed that? I'm just curious. He saved the lady in the bar. How many people remember that? Let's keep it moving. Now, even before all of this, even before Superman surrendered himself to mankind and let mankind arrest him to help them feel more secure. And obviously, Superman could have taken out that entire military. There was nothing the military could do to Superman to harm him, right? If he really wanted to, like Bruce Wayne was saying in BVS, if he wanted to, he could destroy the entire world. We saw the fight with General Zod. Just two Kryptonians going at one another, and you saw the damage they did, okay? So if Superman wanted to take out the military, he could do it. What did he do instead? With all that power, remember Justice League when Bruce Wayne says, he decides to assimilate into mankind. He finds love. He gets a job. He got all that power, and that's what he's going to do. You get what I'm saying? And that's interesting to Bruce Wayne. Superman surrenders himself to mankind. And he even lets them handcuff him so they could feel more secure. That's Superman. Now, people talk about Superman smiling when he learned how to fly for the first time. And they say, yeah, nice try, Zack Snyder. But the point is, the euphoria he had in pushing himself to the max, living up to his full potential. That's the joy you see on his face. That's why he's laughing. He's laughing because he realizes for the first time, and he can actually fly. He can fly. And everybody found the joy in that. Lots of people love that in Man of Steel, how you can fly around and fly all over the world, zip here, zip there in a matter of minutes, okay? Moving faster than a satellite, okay? In orbit. We saw him buzz by a satellite like nothing. Whoosh, right? And the thing about it, though, is he's now living up to his full potential. See, we never seen this before. We never seen Superman learn how to fly on the big screen. We just saw him flying, right? We've seen him learn how to fly on the small screen in Smallville and so on, but we've never seen him learn how to fly on the big screen. And the joy of being able to release his full potential. His father gave him the okay to go to the max. Now we have a story. Checking you guys in the comment section here. David says, nothing very special. David says, very cool, dude. Like you, I will treasure the past 5 DCEU movies. Yeah, man. Hey, press on, brother. If you like the DCU and where it's going, press on. Don't let me stop you, brother. I hope you cherish what you see. I mean, don't let me ever stop you from having your joy. Okay? I don't have to have joy for you to have joy. You know what I mean? I'm just going on with Man of Steel for a reason. There's a reason behind this, though. There's a reason behind this video. And I am going to push this reason. I'm going to come to the punchline. Trust me. So hold on to your horses, because we have a point here. There's a point behind this video. Remember when I'm kind of skipping past on a bunch of stuff, but remember when there was the Smallville battle and Faora was coming towards a pilot because Namek had just killed a pilot. He just bust a guy's head off his body, just decapitated the dude. Well, Faora was coming towards the next pilot. She just gone through an explosive fire that Namek just came down with. And she walked straight through that fire and leaped up into the air and was coming straight at the pilot. And the only thing that stopped her from killing that pilot, because the Kryptonians don't play, okay? And if you watch Krypton, you realize how the Kryptonians don't play. And I'm sure when you watch Aquaman, when you watch Shazam, you'll get some more depth behind Superman and all the other superheroes. I saw someone put out, the place where Aquaman was at, it was advertised inside of the subway that, what's his name? Shazam, or not Shazam, Billy was going to. So there's a lot of Easter eggs I see and shout outs to the earlier DCEU movies and tributes to them, right, and homages to them, and as well, and very importantly, which I had read a while back, so you guys understand. I understand where you guys are coming from. I know what I'm saying, though. So you guys understand. I've seen the interview with the actors who are playing in Shazam, and they were talking about how the DCEU universe is real to them. It's not they're watching these comic book characters through a comic book, but these comic book characters actually exist in their world, right? Again, I understand all of these things. Okay, I understand Shazam is in the heart of the world and so on. I understand all of that. That's not my problem, right? And I don't want to go and reiterate that right now, because that's not what this video is about, one. And two, there's something very positive I'm trying to point out, so that even going forward, you can see what I'm saying and the substance of what I'm saying, and whatever you do, whatever movie you look at, whether it's devoid of this or it has this, always look for substance, all right, in your movies. Don't just go for empty entertainment, okay? And I'm pretty sure the DCU will try to still have some sort of substance in their entertainment. I am pretty sure about that, but that's not the point, okay? The level of substance, I know, is being very heavily depreciated, okay? And it's a compromise that has happened so that they can get young kids into the seats. They're interested in the younger generation, not the older generation. They're interested in the younger generation having entertainment. All right. And they think that they have succeeded at doing something like that with Wonder Woman. They thought they achieved that, but they have to understand Wonder Woman was still a very adult film, and also was grounded in the DCEU. Even Suicide Squad, which was mostly for teenagers and in younger adults, was grounded in the DCEU, and a certain degree of realism was afforded to both movies. And I'm saying all of this because of a certain reason. I'm saying all these things. It's not a negative reason, by the way. I'm not trying to put the future DCEU movies on blast. I'm trying to show you the beauty of having movies which are geared towards a much more mature audience, and yet children, even children, can appreciate these kinds of movies. See, mature content doesn't mean curse words, doesn't mean gritty and dark. I want people to understand that. I don't go to watch a movie because it's gritty and dark and there's a lot of blood. If that was the case, then I would have probably watched what's the movie? The series on Netflix. I forgot what his name is. See, I don't even remember the name of the guy. The actor who plays that character was also acting in The Accountant. That's how I get you guys to understand. You guys may know the name of the character I'm talking about. And there was a series of movies that flopped before this series actually had success. It's not Daredevil. I can't remember the guy's name. I'm drawing a blank right now, and that's sad. But it's grimy. It's in depth. I think a lot of the Marvel series on Netflix are also grimy, and there's a lot of action in them. But again, they don't appeal to me because the depth that is necessary, not just intrigue, not just the depth, the relevance to today's world, the depth of these movies, they're not there. You see, that's why those movies don't appeal to me. They're more interested in the choreographed fight scenes. They have elaborate fight scenes, and they try to show grime and gore, but there's no substance behind it. See, The Accountant was based on something, a concept, first of all, and second of all, it had substance in it. It was telling us about how people with autism are, and not only that, but also opening our minds to the wider world around us. And so, again, the relevance of those things is important. It's not just expletives and action, make it gritty and grimy and dark. That's not the point behind these movies. Wonder Woman is special again. So let's go back to Man of Steel and show you how special that movie was and why I am emphasizing on Superman so much, right? So yes, he saves the pilot, right, from being killed. All right, he saved a lot of people. He made it clear to General Zod a moment before, when he was on the ship, that taking over Earth was not an option for General Zod. He was not interested in that. And again, this is what Superman is about. Okay? When we look here, in the middle of a battle, he saves a soldier falling out of a helicopter, but took a second to ask if he was okay. And another thing that's very important for people to remember, the airplane pilot who was being saved by Superman had just been shot. I'm sorry, he had just shot at Superman along with Feora, along with Namek. Remember that? This is the guy who's shooting at Superman. And yet he saves the guy's life. Never seen that on the screen, ever, with any superhero movie. Go ahead, have a look. You'll find out that I'm right. So he took upon himself the mantle to protect mankind, irregardless of what happens to him. So he saves this human being here. He asks him if he's okay. The guy pulls out his gun to try and attack Namek, and Superman has to push him out the way before getting hit in place of that soldier. If that soldier got hit by Namek, he would have died, right? The soldier would have Namek would have just punched straight through the guy, like paced his brain, or his body would have broken out. And, there's no match for these guys, right? Because Namek just ripped the guy's head off his body, right? So Superman, he is sacrificing himself for others. Okay. Then he saves another soldier who didn't like him. That's Colonel Hardy. Right? Didn't like him, says, shoot at this son of a gun. He's not one of us. He's an alien, right? Shoot them all. Right? And Superman saves his life. He was about to be killed by Feora. Again, the Kryptonians don't leave any prisoners. They kill you. Okay. They don't care about human lives. In fact, Feora said, for every human life you save, we will kill 1,000,000 more. They weren't playing, right? The Kryptonians, it wasn't like Superman 19 it wasn't like Superman 2, where the Kryptonians came and they posing and they would just want to rule mankind, and they would just, they fought Superman, but it was just about ruling mankind and kneel before us. It wasn't that shit at all. This was a whole other level. The Kryptonians came to annihilate mankind so they could raise up Krypton. They didn't see human beings as anything. They saw them as cockroaches, as nuisances to get rid of so they could create their new world. Do you think twice to kill a cockroach or a mosquito or a fly? You don't think twice, right? They don't think twice. They're the master race. And you know what's so sad about that whole story? It is so pertinent to now. So relevant. So real. Racism is so real. Let's keep it moving. This is the Superman we're dealing with. A Superman who is saving people who don't like him. He values their lives more than they value his. They gave him up to General Zod because they didn't want to get destroyed. Right? And Superman saves them in return. I want you to understand the Superman Zack Snyder put out there. And I don't worship Zack Snyder. After Superman has done his best, as best he could, to save mankind as best as he could, and the Kryptonians got out of there, Superman walks up and sees Colonel Hardy, the guy that did not approve of him, and says, this man is not our enemy. And then Superman says, thank you, Colonel. He waits with courtesy for the Colonel to make a statement on him. He is a servant of mankind. He works alongside with mankind. He's there to better mankind, but not through leading from the front. He is there to support. He is there to help out. Mankind will still have to manage their own personal affairs. He's not going to try and get too involved in their personal affairs, and he's not trying to be dubbed king of mankind. Oh, that we would listen to that. This is the role of the servant. Everybody wanted Superman to lead out for mankind. He's supposed to be the great shining light. Superman's supposed to take charge of the situation. That's not my Superman. That's not how Superman would be. That's not how Superman works. He's a friend of mankind. He is not the first resort or last resort for mankind. Superman will allow mankind to sort out their situations. But where needed, he will come to support mankind against threats to the earth. That is the Superman I know. Not a Superman that wants to be worshipped as a hero, but a Superman who will do whatever is necessary to ensure that human beings' freedoms and rights are protected. That there can be peace. Not going to interfere with human-to-human interactions unless it jeopardizes all of humanity. That's the Superman Zack Snyder presented to us. The best Superman I've ever seen on screen. There is no other Superman I think is better, because I did not like Superman before that. I thought of him as a waste. A lot of you guys saw Superman as representing hope, which was great. I Did appreciate Superman from the comics, however. Whenever I read about Superman, I enjoyed it. But the Christopher Reeve Superman I thought was ridiculous when I got older because it doesn't make sense. And that Superman has been worshipped for the longest while. And I resented that. Then I came to understand the relevance of Superman. I didn't understand what Superman represented. I enjoyed Smallville, but Smallville never really pushed Superman. It pushed Clark Kent, Kal-El. Eventually, we saw Superman. But I enjoyed the crap out of Smallville. Okay? Didn't see every issue, though. But when Zack Snyder brought out Superman, Man of Steel, he changed my entire outlook of Superman and made it so clear that Superman is really Jesus that I fell in love with Superman and his ideals particularly. Not particularly the person, but the ideals that Superman was embodying. And these ideas were on display throughout Man of Steel. Right. Dave Easton says, never have, never will. Always have, always will. Luke Cage. No, it wasn't Luke Cage. Luke Cage wasn't in The Accountant. The actor who played Luke Cage was not in The Accountant. The person I am talking about, I'll tell you in a minute. The Punisher. That's the person. The Punisher. The Punisher is a very graphic Netflix special. Very gritty. But a lot of people get caught up in the grittiness of it and its determination. And to me, that's just not my thing. That doesn't interest me. What interests me is not intrigue. It's not how gritty something is or how dark something is. You know, what interests me is the premise and the story that's happening. What I mean by that is, when I look at a story, can I find things to relate to everyday life? Do I have to search deeply for it? Is it just one thing I'm going to see? You know, how much art is in this and how much generic stuff that we've seen over and over again is in it. And so that's why The Punisher never really appealed to me. While everybody was talking about The Punisher, but I've watched little bits of it, and it's always action pieces and fighting and fighting and fighting. I'm not interested in that. Luke Cage, the same thing. A lot of fighting, a lot of fighting, a lot of fighting. Not interested in that stuff, you know? That's what people don't get. And yes, he's black, but that doesn't mean anything. Even though I have to admit, I do see the magnetism in the acting. These actors really are putting on some pretty good performances, so that I get respect. I have respect for that their acting is quite good. But again, in terms of content and story, I'm not, you know, there's certain parts of it that are interesting, I gotta admit. But again, all around, I'm not really, it doesn't capture my interest enough for me to want to see it. It's kind of like Gotham. There are things in Gotham that are interesting, you know, very interesting. It's dark, it's gritty, it's grimy, but it's not enough to get my attention to make me want to see it and just follow it. You understand? And the same thing with Luke Cage. It's the same thing with The Punisher. It's the same thing with Daredevil. You know, if it's just about action, I'm not there. You got to bring something more. I mean, the bar has been lifted so high after watching Wonder Woman and Black Panther, which is a fantastic movie. You know, Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, and you know, Sucker Punch, which is on another level altogether. I'll break down Sucker Punch for you guys because somebody said they wanted me to do Sucker Punch for them. You know, I'm not interested in 300. Ask anybody. 300 is not my kind of movie. You know, 300 kind of, I understand it. I understand what it's about, but that doesn't stimulate me. You talk about Dawn of the Dead, that doesn't interest me either. Okay, that's two of Zack Snyder's movies that don't interest me. But Al Zagahul is a fantastic movie. Sucker Punch was a fantastic movie. Watchmen, and again, the interesting thing that people need to understand is Watchmen is not a realistic movie. It is not. The action is not realistic. The fights are not realistic. You know, Sucker Punch is not a realistic movie. It is all fantasy, as Watchmen. And while there are some kind of alternative versions to events that happen, it is all fantasy based. So it's very important for people to understand Zack Snyder's Watchmen and his Sucker Punch are fantasy based films in which he really warps reality tremendously. You have to suspend your belief. And again, Sucker Punch is really something happening in a girl's mind. So it's the imagination. So that's allowed. And with Watchmen, it's just straight up fantasy. And it's just about style. Okay. It's a stylized film. The substance is in the topics that are there. Okay. It's not about, don't try to find a grounded reality in Watchmen. There's no grounded reality in that. There's just not. It's a straight up comic book movie. Okay. Literally, it's like a comic book movie, right? It's not like the MCU comic book movies. It's different in that it's, how do I put this? This is a perfect example. The Matrix. Now, the Matrix is much more grounded and it's much more realistic, but yet, because the Matrix is a virtual world, it allows for fantasy. You see what I'm saying? So it's not grounded in a rooted reality, which is why even the fight scenes in the Matrix seem touchy. You just touch the guy and you beat the guy up, right? It's kind of fake. Okay, we can feel the fakeness, and the idea behind it was to feel the fakeness, that this is a virtual world, this is not a real world, right? So the Matrix is a perfect example of what I would say Zack Snyder is doing, in that he has the leeway to do that in Watchmen, because Watchmen's basically telling you that the reality you're watching is not real. That's the subliminal message sent to you in Watchmen. Watchmen's saying this is definitely not your world. Right? This is another world. And he makes the point, he makes that point two ways. The first one is the alternate reality that they won the Vietnam War and the North Korean War. And the other thing that's pretty weird is realizing that, you know, all of this weird stuff that happens with Richard Nixon, even though that's true, that Richard Nixon won the election and he got, you know, Watergate happened and all that. Those are real events that happen. But just the way how the action is done, just the way how the world is perceived and so on, you can tell, even though he's using some physics behind it and stuff, and the visual imagery is great, he's still not following any kind of grounded. It's not, he's not trying to be grounded. Okay. Now the animation, this is the irony of Zack Snyder. His animated Owls of Gaul is more realistic than probably most animated motion pictures. Okay. Most. It is so real. He went with, it's really the irony. Zack Snyder does this all the time. He would take something that's supposed to be real and grounded, and he would make it fantastical. Then he would take something that's supposed to be fantastical, and he would make it real and grounded. So for instance, Superman is a fantastical character, right? So he took Superman, he made him grounded. That's the irony of the situation, right? With Watchmen, where you would expect these characters to be grounded, because remember, they don't really have superpowers. They have super strength and stuff, but they don't really have superpowers, right? Watchmen's more ordinary. He made them superhuman, right? So superhuman that they actually define the laws of physics at times, right? So Watchmen is not a realistic movie. So don't try to, you can't argue that it's realistic. There's no realism to it, really. It's not grounded in real. It's grounded in fantasy. Sucker Punch is not grounded in realism. It's grounded in fantasy. All right. It's literally the imagination of a girl and what's going on in her mind. Okay. Owls of Gaul, on the other hand, is very realistic. Oh yes, owls don't talk, but I mean the way how they move, they fly, the physics of what they were doing, their movement, how they die, and all of that stuff, which is not usually seen in an animated movie. That is as real as it gets. Dawn of the Dead is more real than 300. 300 is not grounded in realism. It's grounded in epics. It's grounded in mythology, and it's treated as a myth, right? So what you're watching is a myth, okay? Right, so now we got that out of the way. And so when you look at now Man of Steel, that is one of his most realistic films. Of course, Batman v Superman is very realistic as well. This is one of his most realistic films Zack Snyder has done in his career. The other one is Dawn of the Dead. And of course, I said Owls of Ga'Hoole. Those are probably his most realistic collection of films, plus Batman v Superman. And Justice League was supposed to fall in line with that realism, with the superpower beings in there. But it sort of kind of faded off to the deep end at a certain point in time, right? Because Whedon took it over. But nonetheless, the point is, and this is the important point, the point is that Zack Snyder in this particular movie, which is Superman, he again submits himself unto mankind, and he's not there like people think Superman is supposed to be, and it doesn't make sense in reality. He's not there to take charge of every situation and make decisions for mankind. He's not there to do that. That would be a strong man, and Superman is not trying to be a strong man. He's trying to be a helper, a helpmeet, shall I say, like the Holy Ghost, right? All right, let's move on, because I have a lot more to cover. Boy That Has No Name says Superman didn't leave to destroy the world engine until the general gave him approval, because, you know, Snyder's Superman is a jerk. And that's true. Again, he was working alongside with mankind. He did not try to, again, servant, or what's the word I'm looking for? Subvert mankind's authority. He's working along with them. He needs their approval. And it's ironic that Senator Finch goes on to say how Superman, he needs to follow the rule of the consent, you know, of the governed. And that's what Superman is trying to do all along, right? You saw him in Man of Steel trying to do that. And then he goes into BVS and he's trying to do it, but there's certain things that are urgent. So he has to cross certain domains and save planes and save lives, even when he crosses boundaries, and doesn't always inform the governments that he's with that he's going to do these things. And Senator Finch is like, you have to inform them, otherwise don't do it, you know? And this is what Charlie Rose was saying to her. He was saying, so you're going to prevent Superman from saving a young child's life because he didn't consult with you? You know, that's what Charlie Rose was basically saying. And she was like, I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm just saying he shouldn't do it unilaterally. And he's like, but how is he going to do it if the need arises? He doesn't have time to inform the government. And what she could have proposed was, well, okay, then he can be a United Nations ambassador, and he accounts for every movement he makes. And therefore, by him accounting to the United Nations where he went, what he did, he's reporting to mankind. Therefore, we can give him the allowance to do those things. So she could have, came back on him and said, this is what we want, and that's why I'm bringing him to the Senate. I want to know what he's about, So she could have come back at him, actually. But it makes for an interesting discussion. And what's interesting about this, ladies and gentlemen, is because we have the internet, we actually have Superman. Superman actually exists. When you have a little company and your company is doing so well, and it's an international company on the internet, once it gets to the United States or other countries' attention that you're making a lot of money with your business, now they want to make sure you follow rules. Then they try to rope you in. Look at what's happening with this company right now. It's an international company that allows you to get a taxi very easily. You guys know the name of the company. It's a company that gets you a taxi service. And right now, the government is trying to find all kinds of dirt on this service to close it down. They're saying how they mistreat women and all kinds of bullshit to try and close down the company. You guys know the name of the company. Just tell me what the name of it is. It's a very convenient company. Do you guys know what that company's name is? Do you guys know what it is? I forgot what it's called. And you just put it in the comment section. Anyway, so in BVS, Superman flies from Metropolis to Mexico. Was it Metropolis? Yes, it's Metropolis. To save a little girl from a burning building. But Zack Snyder doesn't get Superman. Not to mention, Superman is found somewhere up in the North Pole, and he's pulling a boat with all the passengers on it, saving lives up there so they don't freeze over. He was saving people in floods. We saw him saving people in floods and people flagging him down so they can get saved. And these are real issues. We know about the people in Louisiana. We know about the people in New Orleans. We know about the floods that happened in Georgia, right? And Mississippi and Tennessee, right? All of these flooding. Just imagine Superman around to have this happen. He's doing all these good things. So anyway, and there's this big debate over him, right? Of course, we haven't talked about how Superman saved the world from General Zod and the Kryptonians. We're not talking about how Superman saved the people of Metropolis time and time again from Doomsday, laying down his life again. This is something he does time and time again. He puts his body on the line. We've seen him time and time again lay down his life to make sure that mankind can live. So this is the Superman we're talking about. So I think Zack Snyder made a very, very meaningful Superman. Okay. And I just wanted to share that first. Now, what's my point? My point, before I go into the next section, is that Superman means something now to me. And when you watch any film, for a character to mean something to you, we have to get beyond that character to the values they represent. And it's not about trying to focus just on the character, but always you focus on something bigger than the character. And that's what makes Superman, to me, so very special. Because what he strives to do, he doesn't always achieve it, but he strives to do in this particular world we live in, is he aspires to be someone who gives other people hope, but not in a fickle way, not in false hope, but with honesty, truth, justice, and dare I say, I don't know if it's changing, but the American way. He never explicitly said that, but he said, I grew up in Kansas. I'm as American as it just gets. He is an ambassador for the values of democracy, fair play, aiding other people and other countries. This is what America is supposed to be about. A dream that you can be whatever you want to be in your life if you work at it, and to go to your max, achieve your full potential in doing good. So Superman actually represents what the United States is trying to show the world it is. It falls brutally short of it at times, and in these days it's on an all-time low, but people have an idea. That's why a lot of people want to go to the United States of America. He also taps into humanity in a way, even though he's not human, in which it inspires other people to want to be better. So these values of justice, truth, fair play, and hopefulness is what Superman basically embodies. Now, before this, people would say Superman was a man that flew in the sky, and the S on Superman's chest means super, and people really never knew how to verbalize what Superman was until David Goyer, Christopher Nolan, and Zack Snyder crystallized that for people. Crystallized that he was a foreigner who helped us to see the best in ourselves. That sometimes an outsider can actually help us value things we take for granted. He is the visitor from another world. He is the refugee from another planet. And so these kinds of things we would have never seen. We would have never really, they were never fully explored. They were never looked at. He is a refugee. The Bible says, do not keep a stranger outside of your gate. Now, the world initially wanted to keep Superman outside and away from them until they found out that they needed Superman. And we found this out in Justice League, right? In Justice League, in the absence of Superman, the world began to realize how much they needed him. Sadly, we did not get the full Justice League movie that Zack intended, because I have a feeling that there's more to the story about how the world sees and views and values Superman that we did not see in Justice League. And yes, Shazam will give us a little bit of it, and maybe even Aquaman. But at the end of the day, it's not going to have been properly and thoroughly explored like it should have been, which is sad. And that's why I'm still pushing for the Snyder Cut, that Warner Brothers release it. And I know there are a number of fans like myself that will continue to push for the Snyder Cut. And, you know, we got a time frame on it. I think the interest for the Snyder Cut is probably higher than the interest, in my opinion, for some people I know, than the interest for any one of these DCU films that are coming up now. I'm pretty sure about it. For some people, their mind's already made up. I looked on Twitter and I saw a bunch of people, but that's irrelevant because I don't want to go down that road. I don't want to dirty the borders and muddy it more than I have already had. My point is that for a movie to truly be something that's memorable and not forgettable like Suicide Squad is forgettable, right? Nobody remembers Suicide Squad. People mostly talk about BVS, they talk about Man of Steel, and they may even mention Wonder Woman. Ain't nobody talking about Suicide Squad. You know why? Because Suicide Squad is a one and done movie. It's a one and done. Justice League is a one and done movie. As much as it has layers to it and stuff. What we saw, one and done. Don't need to see it 100 million times. Even though I went and saw it 10 times because there was other things that tied into other DCU movies. That ain't the movie that's going to stand the test of time. I can tell you that right now. So I say all of this to let you guys know that it's important to understand that nostalgia is not enough to let a movie really, especially these days, to let a movie endure and stand the test of time. You know, it's the content in the movie. And that's my point. And I want you guys to hear me good. Because what the studios today are doing with big budget blockbusters, with brand name characters, I believe is robbing the art of film from being what it should be. And also, I think it is a death, a natural death for the art of film in comic book movies. The science and art of filmmaking is going. It's disappearing. It's dying. I did do a video about this a while ago. And even what I see on television, where they try to, you know, with Krypton, they try to kind of bring that kind of gravitas to the you know, Krypton, or the gravitas to what they're trying to do now, the DC TV. It's not there. It's not there. It's just not there. I can bring comparisons and I can give you information and data, but the beauty of how people, the art of how they used to do it, it's gone and it's disappearing. And you only see that maybe outside of the genre with one or two films. And you know, if M. Night Shyamalan is allowed to, he can sneak another one by us with Glass. Hopefully he can get that done properly. You look at the death of Blade Runner 2049, a fantastic movie, and the audience says it's boring. When you hear that kind of thing, it tells you what kind of people you're dealing with as well. People who are now entertained by empty stuff. And this is the era we're in, the Trumpian era, where it's about saying something loud enough and as much as possible and giving people empty entertainment. And it's something I just can't do. I can't go into the cinema and watch something that's empty, and I know it's empty. I know that the studio has been involved and it's just a film by committee. I can't do it anymore. You know, with Justice League, I said, you know, I tried to say, well, you know, Zach was out the picture. So, you know, with Suicide Squad, I tried to rationalize it. But I'm not doing it anymore. I can't compromise the integrity of filmmaking. I'm tired of that. I won't waste my time and my money on something I know has been compromised. So my point anyway is this, that this is what makes Man of Steel, BVS, these Superman films, this is what makes them memorable for me. And there's a lot to find in these films that has value to them. You see? And they're treated like films. They're not treated like how the modern day comic book movie is treated today. Not treated like that. It's treated like a film. And I enjoyed that. I want to talk a little bit about symmetry. So here you're looking at symmetry within a scene. I think some of you have seen this before, but it actually, I'm going to delve a little deeper, okay? So the government in a country, generally, they can monitor their citizens. They know what the pulse of their citizens are. There's so much technology now to monitor us. This very laptop that I'm using can actually monitor me. They can actually look at me, right? We know from the movie, Jesus Christ, I'm trying to remember the name of the movie right now. But the movie that came out based on a true story, which is a CIA agent who is now in Moscow. He stays there. I forgot what the name of the movie is. That they can monitor you through your laptop. So once you have a camera on your laptop, they can actually monitor you, and they can monitor me. The government can see everything now. All details. They can sort through stuff. We know that the internet, they watch at your choices, what you do on the internet, so they know how to advertise to you, etc. They track you and stuff. I say all of this to say, in a deeper way, that General Swanwick thought he had an advantage, and the government and the military, by interrogating Superman, having Superman there in the room with Lois Lane. They thought they were going to pick up something because he would assume that he's alone. But the difference with Superman is aware that they are monitoring him. And he very casually, just because he's subservient to them, just because he's humble, doesn't mean he's not powerful. And that's a lesson to us. But anyway, we're looking from the perspective of the government here, which Zack Snyder very brilliantly did. Again, Superman movies don't do these things. Comic book movies don't do these things. They're all about the wow factor. They're not about substance. And I told you Zack Snyder comes from an indie film direction. Now, what's the advantage of being an indie film director who has been to Sundance festivals and he has been around foreign films and so on? The mind is open. And art is first. And the beauty in this is not only do we see General Swanwick watching at Superman, but if you pay attention, you will see in the background a soldier also watching Superman. General Swanwick represents the government. Not just the government, but the military arm of the government, the executable arm of the government. The one that ensures enforcement of policy, protection of the state, and protection of the freedoms of the government. This man is a very powerful man facing Superman, who is not intimidated by him one bit. You have to understand, if Superman wants to, that glass between General Swanwick and himself can be destroyed, and he can simply rip General Swanwick's head off his body, and that would be the end of General Swanwick. You have to understand the Kryptonians. The Kryptonians are a very aggressive people. And as I just told you before, they don't think of human beings as sentient beings worthy of their examination. Superman, who has been raised an Earthling, thinks of them that way. Not the Kryptonians. I want you to understand, this is a Kryptonian facing a human. I don't think you guys understand what I'm saying. Kryptonians, by nature, as the Earth has witnessed them, are extremely dangerous. They do not have humans' interests at heart. So to have a Kryptonian care about humans is an ironical situation. You know Zack Snyder likes irony, right? I want you to understand what I'm talking about, because a lot of people don't get Man of Steel and how much Man of Steel is not a movie that's to be taken chance of. Now, let me rephrase this so people don't understand. Let me rephrase it so it makes sense to all of you. Islam and Islamists or Muslims are seen as very militant people who will kill everyone, death to Christians, and kill everyone. Islam is a danger, it's a threat because of ISIS and because of these militant Muslims who do not believe that these pagans and these unbelievers should survive. Isn't that what Islam teaches? Islam teaches death to the unbelievers, right? You know, they have a jihad, right? A holy war. Uber, that's the name. Uber. Thank you very much, Davies. Thank you very much. Right? In 2013, it was a big issue. And it still is to this day. They talk about radical Islam. So if you're called a radical Islam sympathizer or a radical Islam Muslim, for whatever reason, you're called radical, all of a sudden you're public enemy number one. Think of Superman as a radical Islamist in the eyes of General Swanwick, even though he doesn't behave like one. That's the guy General Swanwick is seeing through the mirror as he reasons with him. They shackled Superman down. Isn't that what the government does? When you're a threat? You don't have to do anything to be a threat, right? You just have to be one. You just have to have the name. You just have to behave a little bit different. And suddenly you're a threat. And they'll cite things you said on the internet, and they'll narrow you down, and they'll label you a threat. And then the whole world thinks you're a threat. Because all they got to do, all the government has to do to you or me is say, we are public enemy number one. And everybody believe the government. Yeah, he had to have done something wrong. I may not have had done a crime in my life. But if tomorrow the government says I am X, Y, and Z threat, bet your bottom dollar, most people will believe that because people are sheep. And I can be put away to some prison somewhere just like that. Scary, isn't it? So could you. Well, guess what? So could Superman. Think about what I'm saying. If Superman could be considered public enemy number one, what for you and me? Huh? I want you to understand that to me, this movie is a lot more than just an emo Superman movie. Oh, it's so dull and boring. Is it really? Is it really? Is it? Oh, I love Man of Steel. I love Batman v Superman. I hear people say that all the time. Some stupid nostalgia. They don't know why. They can't articulate it. They want to worship Zack Snyder. Hail Zack Snyder, our Lord and Savior, Zack Christ, or some stupidness like that. They say all these nonsense, but they don't know why. Somebody has to break it down to them. Because they worship things, not virtues and ideas. I want you to think about what I'm saying, because I want you to understand in the DCU going forward, these are the questions you must ask yourself. And why sometimes I keep on advocating not for jokes and fun, but substance. You know, Someone once used this statement about Zack Snyder, which you're pretty familiar with, I'm sure, people. You heard it in a certain movie. They do not deserve you. And then in the same movie, I can hear Zack Snyder saying, it's not what they deserve, it's what I believe. Meaning, I believe in love. And so I have put this thing out there so that other people could believe in it too, in a real way. Warner Brothers, I get the feeling, the people working there think Zack Snyder doesn't get comic book movies. I get the feeling that certain people in media think Zack Snyder doesn't get comic book movies. I think followers of Zack Snyder, who don't get comic book movies to start with, worship him, and they still don't get that he gets comic book movies. He's a highly misunderstood person. Just looking at the movements that follow him, because they don't get it. Zack Snyder doesn't care about gritty. He doesn't even care about violence. Zack Snyder cares about the message he gives in his movie. He's servant to the message of the movie. He's servant to the idea he's giving in the movie. He won't compromise how that idea is displayed, but he's interested in the idea. Okay. Just so happens he's excellent at giving action, but he's also excellent at the dramatic moments in the movie, I find. Anyway, the point behind it is that the symmetry in this scene is very insightful. So the government monitors the Superman because he's a risk. How many of you just mentioned, Dave Ethan, you just mentioned Uber. Uber is a Superman right now. It has risen to prominence. It has created an idea, an ideal that circumvents a lot of things. And so it's progressing on very, very well. And the government is down on it like nobody's business. Dave Ethan says, you mean Zod and company specifically? Yes, in terms of Kryptonians, remember, the Earthlings have not witnessed or they have not experienced in recent times Kryptonians other than Zod and company. And Superman has been highlighted as a Kryptonian, and Zod has pointed him out and pulled him out as Kal-El. So the world was introduced to Superman through General Zod. Therefore, Superman is seen to be allied with and to be a part of Zod. And now knowing that Zod is a Kryptonian, the world would be afraid of Superman. So when this meeting happens, where Superman is to be given over to General Zod, obviously General Swanwick would be concerned, right? Especially how Superman kind of handled the situation. Even though he surrendered, he was like, don't play games with me, General, right? Trust me. General Zod didn't want to play games with Superman, okay? You don't want to play games with Superman. You really don't, okay? And Superman's a kind of straight shooter. He's a straight kind of, simpleton in terms of country boy and values, and he's a straight shooter, okay? If Superman decides tomorrow, that's what Bruce Wayne was talking about, if he decided tomorrow that he was going to just destroy the earth, there's no one to stop him, okay? If that's in his mind, nobody's stopping Superman, right? We know this now. We clearly understand this, right? That's not his intention. So let's continue. The second part of the symmetry here, which has to do with Superman, is we see from our perspective, Superman who can see General Zod and company, but Zack Snyder allows us to see the mirror image of Superman talking to General Zod. Now, this is how Superman sees General Zod. He sees General Zod in his own image. It is weird, but Superman has elevated mankind to his level because Superman was born into humanity. Let me say that again because it's pretty deep what I just said. Superman sees General Zod on his level because Superman was humanized. He was born into humanity. Let me say it this way. Jesus, so you guys will understand what I'm saying, for the Christian folk, Jesus sees us on his level because Jesus was born into humanity. You understand it now? There's a lot of depth in this thing. It's not, you don't just, Zack Snyder's movies is not just, you don't just breeze on by a Zack Snyder movie. Okay? Every shot he's saying something, in my opinion. So Superman actually feels he's human. You have a Kryptonian that thinks he's human. And he's actually overcompensating for it because he feels he's overcompensating as a human. He knows he's not human now, but he overcompensates for it by trying to be the best human he could possibly be. And so when he sees General Zod, as much as he could kill General Zod where he stands, he values General Zod as a human. And when he's talking to General Zod, he's speaking to General Zod as a human. It's amazing how they are able to highlight why he's called Superman. Hence the movie's called Man of Steel. You like that? I know you guys like that. And if you're a Superman fan, you love what I'm saying. And I know Dave Ethan is enjoying this. Okay? And the nice thing about the DCEU, Dave Ethan says, it's a prime example that hate is not the answer, but unfortunately, a certain number of so-called fans just don't get it. Yes, my friend. Yes, my friend. You know, Stevie Wonder once said to a young lady, he said to her, no matter how bad things get, never give over to hate. Always channel through love. Always channel through love. And we slip and fall all the time. And this Superman movie really shows that. The trilogy is all pointing to that. Always, in so many different ways, right? It's not about, you know, here's the interesting thing. When Superman killed General Zod, and when he killed also Doomsday, he did not kill Doomsday out of hate for Doomsday. He did not kill General Zod out of hate for General Zod. These were necessary things to protect the things and people he loved. He did not kill out of hate. And again, these are very important, sacred things you had to understand. When it comes to Wonder Woman, she did not kill out of hate. She did not kill Ares out of hate. These are very subtle, very important points. Sacred things. We never see Superman lust. We never see Wonder Woman lust. These are sacred things. Very important. See? Because these characters represent certain things. And these values they're mutually exclusive to certain other values. You see? So when Joss Whedon went in there in Justice League and muddied the water by making the Flash, and he did it in such a raunchy, just such a wrong way. How he pulled it off with the Flash. He basically desecrated something that Zack and Patty was trying to hold together. And he thought it was funny. But in these movies, there's a foundation that's put. You're not treating characters like how the MCU treats characters. There is an importance. These characters represent something. And now, the significance of the characters has been, degraded to some degree, thanks to Justice League. And now it's going to be further degraded as we watch the DCU continue forward. Unfortunately, I already see it. I saw it in the trailer with Aquaman. And I saw it in Shazam. Already tearing away at that. You can make a comedy. You can make something funny, but you must maintain the integrity of a character. It's not just about jokes. You have to keep the fabric of that character intact. You have to respect that character. But you see, executives do not understand this. Board committees do not understand this. They want sales. They want to just bring in fans. They don't care about ideals. They're willing to compromise those things. They don't care how much the director is trying to build up to an ideal, to a certain thing, a certain standard. They don't care about that. Because they don't understand what the filmmaker is going for. They don't understand the creative process. They're all about marketing and business and attracting people. But art is not just about attracting people. But if you do good art, it will attract people. You understand? So they're prostituting out these characters. That's what they're doing. I can't be behind that. You understand? Gotta have respect for the character, man. Gotta have respect for the character. In my opinion. I could be wrong. And if so, just show me I'm wrong. But Zach changed the way how I view cinema. When I go to the cinema, I'm not just going for fancy moves and to see powers being expressed. That's superficial. I'm going to the cinema for something more than that. My trip to the cinema must mean something. When I leave, I can discuss as an adult. And children should be able to discuss these films after they leave with their parents. But in order for that to happen, you have to have mature content. Wonder Woman's different because it had mature content. Very craftily and skillfully woven. Put together with respect. Very carefully knit together. It wasn't just some fly-by-night script. You see? It wasn't about pursuing a Marvel formula. Down to the color palette or color grading was deliberate, very specific. Had a specific intent. A lot of research done. You see? Wasn't willy-nilly. Wasn't about psychedelics. Purples. For purple's sake. Everything had its purpose. And that kind of clinic, well thought out process comes as a result of someone who gives a good story, has a passion for the character to relay it, has something really meaningful to say. All right. People were saying this is too much blue. It's bland. It's dry. They don't understand. They don't understand the ambience. Why it looks that way. Because they're not introspective like that. They're used to the blockbuster that's empty. Colorful. But empty. You see? We now know that this color grading that you see is because Superman is in the world of men in a particular capacity, dealing with a particular group of people. It's not just about gritty and grimy. It's not a perfect world. You saw Wonder Woman in a similar world in World War I. Military has a certain color, a certain hue to it. You understand? The significance behind every shot taken. There's meaning to it. Let's talk a little bit more about symmetry. So Superman saves Lois Lane. And then after that, he saves his mother. Now, if you look, there's a subtle nuance between what happens when Superman saves Lois and saves his mother. Now, the symmetry you can see, right? You can see that basically it's the same operation. Superman holds on to his mom pretty much the same way he holds on to Lois. And this is a foreshadowing with Lois of Superman and Lois, you know, having a symbiotic relationship. Okay? At the point in time when we see him here, he's just a protector. He as much as he has a sort of interest in Lois because, you know, he could confide in her and she's kept his secret just like his mother. And Lois is a sort of Martha Kent in many respects. It's very interesting that he's not right at this point in time when he's saving her. He's more concerned about that she's okay, right? So when he puts her down on the ground, he says, "You're okay." Right? Because remember, he had to exercise a lot of strength to pull her from the falling ship and make sure she's safe. And then he guards her from the fire, right? So he really has to protect her because she's very fragile. Now, you have to understand, when you're that strong, if he doesn't know how to control himself, he could have ripped her in half, pulling her from the ship. You have to understand that, okay? So if you look even how Zack Snyder was very careful as to how he pulled her from the ship, how he used his both hands to pull her to himself and then not crush her in the process. Remember, when you are super strong, it means you actually have to be able to control your senses even more than the average person. Now, you know, Superman learned how to focus, so he knew how to control his senses, okay? General Zod later on learned how to control his senses as well. So Superman knows how to control his strength. So he can be very, very, very gentle, and he can be very, very, very strong. He learned how to do that because he had to contain himself. He wouldn't break free. Now he could do that break free thing, but he still has to contain himself, right? You saw him now. If you look at him with his mother here, he really grabs his mother. In fact, he leans in on his mother as if he's literally grabbing his mother like his mother's his support. Like he can't afford to lose his mother, right? It looks like he's desperate. It's almost like he grabbed his mother like he's like he has to survive. If he doesn't have his mother, he can't survive, right? So this is very important. It's a subtle nuance that's different between him and Lois. With Lois, he's holding her. He doesn't want to break Lois. With his mother, on the other hand, he's like gripping on for dear life on his mother right there. He's not going to choke her and strangle her, but you can see he's gripping on for dear life. Let me just zoom in so you guys can have a look at the difference here. Like he literally needs his mother, okay? He literally needs his mother. So here he is with Lois. You can see he's holding her like an egg, right? He's very careful how he's holding her so that he doesn't break her. But here with his mother, look how he leans over on her shoulder. Like he's gripping her for dear life. It's like, God. Now, if you do remember, he went berserk on Zod when he saw Zod threatening his mother. He was like, "You think you could threaten my mother?" He lost it, right? And he came back and he realized his mother was and she was like, I'm all right. Oh, nice suits on it. But he, his mother means everything to him, right? You saw how he went berserk on Lex Luthor. He was about to blow Lex Luthor into infinity. He was going to like laser vision off his head, right? He's like, where is she? Like he lost it, right? It was a comical moment, but it really wasn't funny, right? He loses it if you mess with his mom, because his mom is the last shred of his connection to the people who shaped his life. He lost his father, right? He ain't losing his mother, right? And on top of that, Martha Kent now became his source of advice. He would go to her for everything. He came back to her and told her about how he found his Kryptonian family. He was there with her and talking with her in BVS about, he called her up a night, because he had concerns about just how complicated the world was. He again visited her as Superman. He visited her as Superman, to get the pep talk from her, the assurance from her that, he's not a terrible person. He's not a bad person. He needs Martha Kent. Okay. Of course, when he was born again, when he had his rebirth, he came back as an assurer from his mother, right? But he still lives with his mother. Even at the end of Justice League, you see him there helping to bring the things into the house and protect it. He's the guy. He's the protector of his mother. Okay, he's the dude, and that's what men are. We are protectors, right? So he's actually showing us how a man should conduct himself with his mother, as well as with his wife or his girlfriend, person of interest. He basically sets that standard and that example. Zack Snyder was very careful how he portrayed Superman on the screen for you guys. He's very careful how he portrayed him. So when people said reckless statements like, Supes, he's emo Superman. He's, Zack Snyder is a murderverse Zack Snyder. Superman murders people. That's as offensive as you can be, because Zack made sure to put down that foundation. Superman is not that. He's not a murderer. If Superman wanted to be a murderer tomorrow, if he wanted to be, a dictator, he could do it, right? And then we would have, what we call that, and even he showed it in BVS, where Superman was a murderer and a dictator. In what do you call that? What's the video game and the comic book name after it? Injustice Superman. If you want to see what Superman could be as a dictator and a leader and ruler, he's not a helper. Injustice Superman is your Superman. And you saw how the Injustice Superman ain't no joke, okay? Injustice Superman ripped out Batman's heart like if it was a joke, okay? Incinerated the people around him, the rebellion. Batman's always part of the rebellion. If you know once Superman is being used by the state, Batman's the guy to stop Superman. It's been so in the comic books for forever. Okay, so it's not funny that in BVS, Batman's the guy to stop Superman. It's not funny that in BVS we see Injustice Superman and Batman's the guy going up against him. It's not funny when we see Batman in Justice League. Again, he's the key to Superman coming back, and the fact that Batman has to confront Superman again. This is not something new. This has been in the comics forever. Okay, so for people to say that, it's emo Superman and Superman looks like Batman, it's like you're not really thinking. It's like so stupid. Like you're not even trying to think about what you're saying. You're just talking out of emotion. You know what I mean? Anyways, going back to what I was saying. So in Man of Steel, you see Superman there, and he needs his mother. There's a different kind of hug to this hug. Watch this hug. This one's more a savior complex, right? Where he's saving Lewis. All right, for those of you who know what a savior complex is. And he's really, look how careful he is when he's holding her. He's like really concerned about that she's alive and she's okay. Right? That's Superman. You saw it with the soldier. You okay? Right? He's asking the guy if he's okay. You imagine this guy has all the strength in the world. If he wanted to, he could plow out, kill out the whole world. He didn't even think twice. Imagine Superman has to be so careful. And again, they explored this in the comics. How when he has to slow down a train, how he can't slow it down too fast. He has to gradually create that resistance to the train, right? Otherwise, he plows straight through the train and kills everybody on board. You understand? He has to be so delicate with everything he does. He doesn't use his powers and strengths to subdue people. He's there to liberate, free, empower people, give them hope, right? So he's really concerned about mankind, like they take like his children sometimes, you know what I mean? Without being so involved in their dealings. And you've seen that in Wonder Woman as well, right? Okay. So that's what this symmetry kind of shows us. That's why I love Superman, man. Hey, Justice League is still my number 3 movie of all time. Mine too. Don't get me wrong. After after Batman v Superman, I had Justice League at number 2. In terms of not of all time in terms of movie, but in terms of comic book movies, it was number 2. And the reason is, again, the content that Zack Snyder put in that movie and the amount of work put into it carried it above Wonder Woman, carried it above Man of Steel. And Man of Steel is number 3 in my lineup. Batman v Superman, Justice League, Man of Steel, then Wonder Woman. Okay, that's how it goes. And again, fantastic movies. Okay. Yeah, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Yes, my friend. That is so true on so many different levels. Keeping it moving anyway. So, the last of my set of stuff is one that I think a lot of people, again, overlooked. And it's so amazing that the people overlook this. So, here is Clark speaking to the priest. But if you're paying attention to the picture in the background, you would notice that Jesus has risen from the dead. And this is his shawl or whatever. And he's coming out. He's risen from the dead here. I know you guys didn't pick that one up. Right. So I think this is the tomb here. And I think this could be him visiting Lazarus. I don't know which one it is. But this is Jesus coming from, I think, from the dead. I think this is what this is. And I thought that was very interesting because if you do remember, this same priest at the end of Batman v Superman, he was talking about how the earth will yield forth her dead. Remember that? And I thought that was a foreshadowing of Superman's resurrection as well in the conversation between them. Because you see, the other picture was behind Superman. Okay, the one with him praying to his father. So all of these pictures, I think, talk about the death, crucifixion, and resurrection of Jesus. And this is the resurrection of Jesus here. You see the cross behind him. And this is him coming up from the dead. So you have here him at the Garden of Gethsemane. And then I guess there's another picture opposite of this one where he's crucified. And I guess when you come around here, you would see him resurrected, which is beautiful. 3 pictures. The Trinity, you know, the tripartite, the triune, the try this, the try that. 3 is a number in Jewish for wholeness, okay? Anyway, I just thought this was something that people missed. Sort of a foreshadowing, and Superman, I only call him Jesus, and Superman is there sitting down, talking to the Father, of course, which is mirrored with the picture behind him. And I thought that's just an interesting nod there, and that I know a lot of people missed, and I just thought, you know, let me highlight that. Okay, so there you go. So at the end of the day, Superman sitting down in a church with pews. It's sort of Masonic church, if you think about it, because Masonic teachings, again, show you pews. Pews are a Masonic thing, actually. Nonetheless, I digress. So you have here you have the clergymen, and then you have the laity. The irony of the situation is the laity really is the one to protect the clergyman. He's sort of like the Messiah here, sitting down talking to the clergyman. And it reminds me of Jesus when he started speaking to the Sanhedrin or the priests in day while he was a child, 12 years old, asking them questions they could not answer. It sort of reminded me of that scenario, actually. And it also foreshadowed his salvation of mankind as well. So I thought this was very interesting for people to look into. So this is the kind of stuff that you see. Now, the next thing I think is just my song. No, my bad. I forgot to talk about the relationship between Clark and Lewis. I think it's best summarized. The best way to summarize Clark and Lewis's relationship is summarized in this iconography here, and that Zack Snyder utilized. And it's fantastic because, again, if you love Superman, you will love what I'm about to say. This is the relationship between a husband and a wife as they first meet each other. sort of the first meeting of a husband and a wife. That's what Zack Snyder is pointing out there. That for the woman, he is like the knight in shining armor. Literally, he looks like a knight in shining armor there. And for the man, she is like the savior of his life. It's just kind of like the savior of his life. It's very interesting that fantasies, because it's a fantasy, obviously, the fantasy of being swept off your feet and being taken away for a woman and for a guy to be what we call chivalry, and the as guys would say, she saved my life, she made my life better. They would say something like that. That sort of fantasy is actually, this is the irony of the situation. The fantasy of that is actually shown in this film. You know, Hollywood films are very cliche, but this one is weird. The irony of it is the fantasy of that is made real in a realistic depiction of a fantastical character facing off against a realistic character. So I don't know if this is making any sense to anyone, because it sounds probably over intellectualized. I'm trying to keep it simple. Let me see how I can simplify that. So you have a superhero here with superpowers. That's fantasy. Okay. You have a real human here who is a real press person who has no powers. That's the realism. So this is fantasy meets realism. So this is fantasy here meets realism. The expectation and this iconography is fantastical. It is the knight in shining armor facing off against the saving grace of a woman. So it's the male and female energies, but it's the fantastical version of it. It's the fantasy that we have about it, seen on the screen, which has a certain degree of realism in it. In other words, Zack Snyder is saying, his statement, in my opinion, is this is fantasy, but there's some reality to it. And the reality of it is in Lois Lane, or it's in the feminine energy. That's the best way to put it. It's fantastical. You know, the idea that, you know, you found your knight in shining armor is a fantastical idea. It's not realistic. Okay. Nonetheless, I like it, because what it's saying is it's a proponent of some old school values, right? If you've ever had a grandparent and you talk with them, they talk about, you know, being gracious as a woman and learning how to be wise yet not crass. You know, it teaches us about how to be a gentleman. You know, you have to learn these things. So it's kind of very, it's filled with what's the word? Chivalry. I can't say the word. My tongue is tying up. Chivalry, right? It's a very chivalrous right here. It's beautiful. And it's something that Zack Snyder is teaching the younger generation as well as the older generation about, and he's kept that inside of the movie. And Hollywood doesn't really deal with chivalry in its pure form, talking about courting and all these elaborations, you know, in a relationship. They don't really deal with that. But here, it's you see it in it's in one iconographic moment, and the relationship's not. It's just one of the weirdest things. It's not sexual, or not purely sexual. This here is more to do with sort of mores and norms and terms of engagement. So it's one of those things where watching this scene is very interesting. Yes, there's a tension between them, but what I'm saying is this moment here I find very, very almost intimate, but not in a sexual way, you know. And to me, that's, you know, you may say I'm overanalyzing, but to me, that's what Superman is. You get it? You get what I'm saying? Superman doesn't save people. Unlike Diana, who transforms people, Superman doesn't save people alone. He gives people hope. That's the knight in shining armor element. Lois Lane is the protector of that hope. That's what you're seeing here. That's why she saves him. You get what I'm saying? So in short, as much as men are physical protectors, we say, of the home and family and that kind of, women, to me, in my opinion, the power of women is in being able to protect values and standards and enforce these values and standards. They set the tone for how a home will be. They set the fabric of the future and the legacy of a family. That's how powerful they are. They also set the legacy and future for a society. They determine what kind of society you will have, because they are the keepers of the virtues and the values. This is why wisdom is a woman. It's not a man. It'll never be. They are. If women in a society fall, the society is gone. If men in a society fall, the society also goes. But the important thing is to understand what Zack Snyder's talking about. When you talk about feminine energies, this is what we're talking about. They are integral to the fabric, the moral fabric, the ethical fabric of a society. Without women, you have no moral fabric, you have no ethics. It's gone forever. You need women to do that. They are the one that they are the fabric that keeps the society together. When they're gone, the society's gone. Civilization's gone. Civility is gone. Engagement is gone. Discourse will be gone. Respect will be gone. They are that important to the society. Men, we are also important to society, but we are taught these values by women. We're not taught by men. We are taught certain values by men, but we are taught certain values by men, obviously. Okay? But what I mean is, in terms of the values I just mentioned, women teach these values primarily. They bring culture to a society. They bring nuance to a society. You understand? I believe that. I don't know if I'm right. I could be absolutely wrong, but I think I'm correct in this. Because just the way how they're socialized as well makes them account for so many other important, subtle things that men just totally miss every single time. We miss it. And we have to be it has to be brought to our observation. We have to be taught these things sometimes by women. And you're taught through example first. So you're able to understand nuance and subtlety through example. And women are able to not only verbalize these things, but they're able to show these things as well. And they're very good at doing these things. They are very good at these subtle, emotional, mental things. I don't know how else to express it. That's why a mother in a home without a mother is a huge deficit than a home with a mother. If you have a home without a father, there's certain things that are lost in the process, but things that other male mentors can always give you. But a mother, you can't replace it with a grandma. You can't replace a mother with a sister or aunt. You can't do it. It's just not possible. It's too big a bond. You know, adopted mothers are fantastic as well, but again, there's something about a direct. There are a couple of things about a mother that's just different. Whether when a woman bears a child, she has to carry it. She has to feed it. She has a bond between that child that goes beyond physicality. She has a personal investment in that child. And so the connection is unlike any other connection you will ever have in this world. The bond between a mother and a child goes beyond any other bond in human existence you'll ever have with anyone. It's a bond that goes beyond logic and reason. And so that's what makes mothers that much more powerful than a father will ever be. If you ask a child to pick between their father and mother, if there was a disaster coming, who am I going to save, my dad or my mom? Most children will tell you their mom. As much as you may love your father and stuff, the connection between you and your father is not as tight as you and your mother will ever be. No matter how much you resent your mother, how much you hate your mother, the connection is always going to be stronger than any other connection because of her love for you, not your love for her. Mothers probably know and understand God better than anyone else in the world because they will love their children irregardless of what their children do to them. And that's a whole other level of love. So I truly believe that, I mean, children could do some heinous acts and their mothers are still going to turn around and love them. They may not approve of what they're doing and they're glad they're in prison or whatever, but they love them and they don't want to see them dead. Just the way mothers are. And so there's no logic behind it. It's just what it is. Okay. So I don't think, you know, as much as fathers do all kinds of things for their children and will go to the nth degree, I don't think they'll ever have that. And that is because of a value. It's a value called love. It's a value that doesn't make much sense at a certain point in time. It seems very illogical, but that's what mothers have. And because of that, they're able to insert that into society. And that's something that you cannot pay for. I don't care who you say you are. That's something that's very, very powerful. That's what makes women so powerful in this world. They have a power that, you know, men just don't have. We don't have that kind of power. Yet it seems ironic that the people who generally rule the world and make decisions mostly are men, which is sad because they're not necessarily the best at doing that, because most men do not tap into those virtues and values as heavily as women would. Now, I'm not saying that you need to have the world ruled solely by women. Absolutely, that would not make sense. But I do believe the balance and how societies and cultures are actually led. I think there should be a balance in energies. And that's the problem. We don't have that today. We still have women being contained and compressed, and there are these men making these decisions for them, which is ridiculous. They should be the ones making decisions. The script should be flipped a lot of times, because as many people have realized, women tend to make much more conscientious decisions, incorporating everybody and considering and really caring for everybody than men do. It's just a fact, because if you've been a mother, you would know that you have to care for all these kids and you have to treat all of them individually, how their needs are, at the same time be fair to all of them, even though you may have a special child. And they're able to do that. And on top of that, they're able to pay attention to their children, work on top of that. And on top of that, they're able to manage the affairs of the household. You tell me they could do all of that, but they can't manage a country? Oh, get out of here, please. So I'm just saying that women, they're integral to society. They're irreplaceable. They're most important. You can't have a society with all men. It'll go down to the crapper. Okay, you have to have a society with women. And you see what men. Not all men leaders are bad leaders. Some men leaders understand we need the women here. They need to be in prominent positions. They need to be at the ultimate position of decision making, and they understand that, and they delegate that to them, and they even give them the office of leaders, you know, the highest office of leaders, and all they do is sit back and delegate, and wherever they are needed, if it's their roles, they step in. That's a smart man. Okay, but if you know, most male leaders are very chauvinistic, egocentric. They abuse their power. They abuse their authority. Now, I'm not saying all men are like that. A lot, the ones who have really been properly trained, properly cultivated, properly inserted values into them, they know how to be humble. They know how to be Gentle, they know how to understand what people have to bring to the table. They know how to inspire other people to how to bring to the table, and they lead from the front the way how you're supposed to, which is to be actually at the back of the pack, pushing everybody forward. That's what you're really supposed to be. To really lead, you have to serve. Okay, you actually have to tend to everybody else's needs. That's what it is to lead. But most leaders don't understand that. They think it's perks. They think it's about, you know, wielding their power. And Superman is not like that. Superman leads from behind, right? So that's why Superman, you know, again, this is the best Superman I've ever seen. Superman is someone who will allow people to do what they do, because he can't do it all, and he knows that. And the things that other people can't do, he'll step in and do what is necessary. He's a helper. He's not the savior. And I love that. So, you know, I just wanted to point that out in Justice League. I don't know if you guys are still hearing this video. Can you hear me? The savior. Okay, there you go. Dave Ethan says, look at it this way. To the world, Lewis represents the beauty and Superman represents the beast. To the world. I got you. To the world. At a certain point in time, yes. I think they at that juncture, when they were there, he looked like the beast. Yes, he did. Dave Ethan says, yeah, same with my mom. Yeah, man. You know, mothers they're awesome, man. You can't replace your mother when she's gone. And, you know, you better have sucked in all those values she had, because that's the only time she's gonna live on. You know, you gotta take it. You gotta value your mother. Dave Ethan says, I am. Right, man. Now, your father shows you how to treat your mother. You know, your father, if your father's done it right, he would show you how to be a proper gentleman, how to be, you know, it's called gentleman for a reason. You know, gentle tells us that you've actually taken in the values of your mother's training. You know, everybody always says, you know, I was well trained when I was growing up. My mom trained me well. They don't say my father trained me well, even though your father does train you as well. It's your mother that trains you well. Why do you think it's the mother that trains you? Why in the animal kingdom, most of the time, the animal that trains the other animals to survive in the wild is the female? Why is it? Why do you think? Why is it the female has a greater responsibility than the males in the animal kingdom? Because the male can't handle it. We can't handle that. Biologically, we can't handle it because we wasn't born with no pouch, or we wasn't born with a womb to carry nothing, right? We can't handle it. We're weaker than women. You know, they like to talk about the woman's the weaker sex. I'm going to flip the script on people for a minute. Emotionally, males are a weaker gender than females. You know, a woman won't commit suicide because a man left her in a relationship. She's less likely to commit suicide than the man is. And the man will commit the suicide in a violent way. He'll either kill the woman and then kill himself, or he'll kill himself. Or he may kill the woman, the children, and himself. The woman is less likely to do that if a man cheats on her, or has infidelity in a relationship, or he's going through a hard time with a woman. She is less likely to kill. Emotionally speaking, a woman is stronger than a man any day, anytime. So who would you want as a leader? Would you want the emotionally unstable man like Donald Trump is today? Or would you want a woman who can handle that pressure? She can handle it, because emotionally speaking, generally speaking, women are emotionally stronger than men because they cry a lot, because they express themselves, because they work out their problems. Men keep their problems to themselves, and it runs around in their head. They don't talk about it, and some of them do talk about it. When they do talk about it, they never get good advice, because the next man, he grappling with it too. So what do? They make the woman public enemy number one. Oh, all women are bad. So stupid. That's the conclusion you can come to after all of that? You're still a little boy. If all women are bad, guess what? Then all men are bad. Because guess what? Men have to be trained by women to be socialized in this world. So if all women are bad, guess what? All men are bad too. Because men are a product of women. We came from them. So what are you really saying? Your mama's bad. That's what you're saying. All women are bad and your mama bad. Oh, you don't want nobody to talk about your mama. But you saying all women are bad all of a sudden? They all bad? So how you come into this world? Why your daddy with your mommy? She bad. Right? This is the kind of stuff you got to understand. So I'm just saying, I know this video is going on and on and on, but I just enjoy talking about Superman, because to me, I can talk about stuff through Superman. Zack Snyder has afforded me this opportunity to extend this stuff. Maybe he wasn't even making that comment, but I'm making it now, because Man of Steel showing you something. It's showing you something. It's not just empty entertainment for me. I don't want to point this out. This is just, I don't want to point this out. All right, that just there is a preview of the song that I'm putting out there on YouTube. That song is called Harmony. You can check it out if you want to. And it's saying something, obviously. So if you guys want to check it out, you can check it out. You know, I say things in my videos. There are always levels to the video. So if you want to go check out that video, you can. That brings me to the end of this discussion. I see Dave Ethan's there with me all the way to the end. That could only mean one thing. You love Superman, bro. I could tell that. You have a love for Superman. And so do I now. You know, I really appreciate Superman. I even appreciate Superman 1978, by the way, because of Man of Steel. You know, and again, I'm not saying that I may not appreciate in the long run Aquaman, or maybe even that Aquaman, when I see the next trailer, I might love Aquaman. They may have polished up the CGI or done some tweaks on it, or maybe even taken more time, because I feel like James Wan kind of had to rush to get out that trailer. From the soundtrack of it, how sometimes it was cut up, I could tell it was a bit rushed, right? So I give them the benefit of the doubt, you know, with the Aquaman, because I want to see Aquaman, you know. I can give him the benefit of the doubt, but it kind of stung when I wasn't feeling much for Aquaman. I loved how he broke, you know, I could see his powers were on display. So you see him when he was so strong, he broke the sword that I guess was carried by Black Manta, because when he went inside the submarine, it was Black Manta there in the submarine with his people that hijacked the submarine. So the pirate in the submarine was Black Manta. And we saw, again, Aquaman jack up Black Panther against the side. He didn't have the Black Manta mask at the time. He didn't have it. He was just a pirate, right? So, but they seem to have tech to be able to move underwater and fast. So that's what happened. But anyway, I could see some potential in there with what James Wan was doing. I just feel like, you know, I talked to another guy recently that they kind of compromised what James Wan was doing. I'll give you an example. The Aquaman movie had a certain symbol. It had a certain sign for Aquaman, if you guys do remember. And that symbol has been changed to this white symbol with a white background. Now, I'm not saying that James Wan didn't come up with that idea and probably change it as well. But there are just certain things when I was following Aquaman and the making of Aquaman and certain scenes in Aquaman that I've seen already changed. So there's evidence that already Aquaman has been changed. And from what I see from the trailer, not to expose James Wan or to expose WB, I know that there's been some changes made, because certain people said that, no, we like what you're doing, but, you know, we need some changes. And that's why I think Aquaman took so long for us to actually see it. And we finally saw it in San Diego Comic-Con. I think that's why it took so long for us to see Aquaman. James Wan was saying it was taking long to render. I know they're not finished rendering Aquaman. I can see that stuff is unpolished, and I know they will polish it up. I understand all of that. And I know James Wan would be so anal retentive about getting the look of Aquaman right. I understand all of that. But I'm getting also certain things. Once upon a time, James Wan was talking about, you know, dealing with how they would speak underwater and stuff. And I'm sure they will get that nailed down. But at the same time, he suddenly changed his stuff and started saying, they just speak underwater, just like how they speak in air, you know. And I was like, what? And then when I saw a certain scene with you know, the posters and stuff, it didn't look as detailed like what I saw in Justice League. But then again, they're probably still working on the CGI. It takes a long time to render this shit and to get it right. So, you know, he was trying to rush probably to put the trailer together, as you saw. And so it wasn't exactly the best trailer in the world. So maybe that's why I wasn't wowed like that for the thing. You know, I'm trying to be apologetic. I'm trying to figure out a way to get around the Marvel stuff that I saw. My point anyway is that you can actually look at the progression of things from Man of Steel and maybe see certain things in Aquaman and so on. And I understand, right? I saw all of those things as well. But at the end of the day, what I'm saying to you guys is that, to me, a movie, when you watch it, and the more you watch it, if you more you watch it, is the more you should be able to see virtues and values and things inside of the movie and be able to unpack it that way. That's all I'm saying. And I have to say, when you're dealing with somebody who deals with details like Zack Snyder does, it is really quite a joy for me as a Christian and as a person to be able to unpack certain things I see in his movies, because I know the virtue in these things. And it's not just talking like a fan or geeking out about something, you know, and it really has, I can't really translate into any relevance. It's just a hobby. So that's the beauty of Zack Snyder's films for me. And that's what I really was expecting from the DCEU. I see Warner Brothers is going in a different direction. I'm pretty sure about that now. And so I believe that some of those things, you know, even though I understand the story of Aquaman and I see what they're trying to build up to, I feel like some of those things are compromised already. And yes, it's a different director, and I understand he's going to have a different style and everything, and that's cool. But I feel like there's certain things already being compromised, and that the director has to actually follow along with what these people say and what they acknowledge, and he has to make changes accordingly. Now, I'm not saying that that's not a part of the process, because I know that that's part of the process for any director, that they always have some compromise with the studio. But I feel like the studio is making them compromise more than they really are willing to do artistically. That there's a certain level of compromise, but I feel like these directors, especially James Wan, I don't know for Sandberg. Sandberg maybe fits into what Warner Brothers wants anyway, and he has a character that fits into that. So that for Sandberg, he's kind of free to do whatever he wants. But when it comes to, and he's probably some guy that was picked anyway by Warner Brothers specifically for that. James Wan, on the other hand, I feel like he was going a particular direction, and he had to do a course correction after Justice League, and that took him some time. Okay. So quite frankly, I think that he's still course correcting and trying to get something good. And he's glad that people have confidence in him as a director. And he's hoping that people will still come to see his movie because they have faith in him. Right. And he's definitely going to try to give his best product. But I feel like studio interference is going to hurt these guys. That when they put out their best particular product, the studio is going to demand that they change something again. I can see it happening, and it really is the thing that kind of bothers me a bit. You know, so that's the thing that bothers me, and it bugs me all the time. And so that's why I don't know if I can support stuff going forward with that. So that's what I'm talking to you guys about. And I've been very honest about that. I am trying to bash the studio. I'm not trying to hate on Warner Brothers. I'm glad that they put out these movies, and I'm glad we're getting an Aquaman movie. I'm glad that we're getting a Shazam movie. I'm glad that we're getting another Wonder Woman movie. I'm glad for all their slate that they have coming up. I'm happy for them, you know. But I can't, in good conscience, be apologetic and being an apologist for them when I see them particularly and deliberately going in a particular direction. I say to myself, well, then why can't I just watch MCU movies and just turn off my brain and just go in there for empty entertainment and just enjoy it, right? Because you guys probably saying, well, that's not, Aquaman's not going to be empty entertainment. But that's where they're heading towards. That's where Warner Brothers is heading towards. Maybe Aquaman is not going to be as empty, but it's definitely going to be a bleached down, diluted down movie. It's going to be diluted down from what it originally was going to be. I know this. This is the fact. Okay? That's what's going to happen to Aquaman. And that kind of bothers me severely. It really bothers me. because this director has to do all these compromises so that he can get his film out, because the studio wants a particular thing from it. And I don't know, man. I just don't know. I just don't know. And again, James Wan's a great director. He's a fantastic director. Okay. Sandberg is a fantastic director. These are solid directors we're talking about, not just fly by night people. All right. So is Patty Jenkins. So I don't say this, I'm not saying what I'm saying. I'm not saying it because I want to be spiteful or I want to see things. I'm saying it out of definitely my love for the past DCU movies. And I'm just being absolutely honest with you people. No agenda intended, right? Because I've been the guy that's defending the DCEU. So I hope you guys understand that and appreciate that for what it is. And I don't want you guys ever to stop enjoying the movies because I don't follow me. I'm like Superman. I'm just a helper. I'm just here to try and help people love the DCEU and value it. And so if I can't do that, you guys pick up the slack and run the race. You don't have to. I don't have to run the. I don't have to be there. I'm not the important ingredient like that. But in the meantime, we do understand where I'm coming from. That's all I'm saying. And this is why I value Man of Steel and stuff. I want these movies to mean something so that it can carry on. And that children, if they get of age, or some of them, the younger ones, go see these movies. Imagine there's a little baby. I saw a little baby loving Man of Steel. Little baby. Loved Man of Steel. Loved to see Superman fly. They say these more mature movies, kids won't love them. How do you know this? How do you know this? Batman v Superman. Children won't love Batman v Superman. How do you know this? Yeah, you got to keep them away from the F-bombs. But other than that, how do you know these children won't like these movies? I've always believed that children are easily sated. They will love anything and everything. Okay? I always believe that. I believe it's the adults. It's up to us. Sometimes, yeah, of course, you got to have kids shows and kids movies, and you have it, you have the animated films for children and stuff. But I don't believe that when you're doing a film, you need to dumb it down and dilute it down and take off the edge from it because your audience, part of your audience is going to be children. I don't believe in that. You're compromising a director or compromising a film because children have to see it too. That's why it's PG-13. And I always believe that some of the PG-13 films that they diluted down for kids do more damage to kids than these movies, because these movies show natural consequence, because these movies are organic and realistic. So the children actually know the seriousness of life. And so the lessons that are taught in these movies are more real than fantasy movies where you have the superhero and is doing certain things where the consequences don't catch up with the superhero. And as a result of that, children end up doing foolish things. So I always believe that if you approach a film with a much more mature outlook, and really have something good to share, that it leads to families discussing the movies. And as a result, this is something that it encourages people to talk to one another, not just sit down and popcorn, watch a film, walk away, and then everybody's on their cell phone again. There's no time for family. There's no time for engagement. There's no time for discussion. That's the kind of future we have. It's destructive. So I truly believe and advocate in art. I advocate you can have funny movies. You can have, Big was a funny movie with the guy who was I forgot what his name is suddenly. Big was a funny movie, but it had virtue in it. It had meaning in it. It wasn't just funny for funny's sake. And I believe Shazam is trying to follow in that sort of vein. But my point being that you cannot compromise Warner Brothers. You can't compromise. Don't do that to you. in your filmmaking. You know, you say you're pro director, then let art succeed. A lot of you guys are thinking bottom end too much, and you sabotage the films. You thought bottom end for BVS, you sabotage the BVS. You thought bottom end for Suicide Squad, you sabotage Suicide Squad. You thought bottom end for Justice League, you sabotage Justice League. When you didn't think bottom end for Wonder Woman, it succeeded. Stop thinking bottom end. Let the directors do what they do. Let them fulfill their vision for their film. You're still not doing it, Warner Brothers. You're doing in James Wan. Poor James Wan got to be jumping through hoops right now. When he thought he would have rendered the film, he has to re-render the film because you guys said he needed to do changes, major changes in his film. That's why James Wan be hopping, skipping, and jumping right now. I know what's happening behind the scenes. Don't have to tell me. I may just go to watch Aquaman just for James Wan's sake. Even once. Even if I'm not interested in it. I might just go watch it just for James Wan's sake. Because I feel for James Wan. I feel for David Ayer. And I feel for Zack Snyder. Because these guys pour their hearts and souls out on these movies. And you guys come back and say, well, change this, change that. Ain't got nobody like a Christopher Nolan to watch out for them. They just got to go make the changes. Then they got to go put a PR out there and BS people and BS themselves so the people have confidence in their film. Man, it's just not right, man. It's just not right. All right, folks. Tom Hanks, that's the guy. Yes. Yeah, my dude. Hey, man, I got to get out of here, but it was fun talking with you guys. It's 10:47 p.m. It's pretty late in the night. I hope you guys have a good one. And, man, I don't know what else to say except I have been grateful to be living in this time. Even in the troublesome times in the country and in the world, you know, and the economy is not so strong in every single country and people are kind of scrapping for things. It's still a great time to be alive. I think, you know, just this internet makes it so much worth it to talk to so many fantastic people like you, Dave Eaton. You definitely a Superman, man. You can rise above any occasion and you actually can find a positive in situations and make people hopeful. And you're a blessing, brother. I'll tell you that. You are a blessing, you know? So thank you for your service in that respect. And all the people also who have been positive out there and staying positive, you people are a blessing. I just want to, you know, wish you the best as you proceed onwards. So I just wanted to share with you guys something about Superman that I loved and the Superman that Zack Snyder brought to us that I really appreciate. And at the same time, I also want to say, stay hopeful for the DCU for tomorrow. You guys keep on thinking positive, talking positive things about the DCU as well. That's a very good thing. And, you know, I learned from you, Dave Ethan, that, you know, you have to just, you know, even when you're devastated, just stay positive. Try to stay on positive things, talk about positive things. And you encouraged me to, you know, want to take a second look at these two films as well, Shazam and Aquaman. And, you know, maybe I don't feel the trailers right now. Maybe I don't feel, you know, what's happening, you know, with Warner Brothers with these things. But I'm going to keep on keeping the hope alive with Snyder Cut. And also I'll be promoting the Ayer Cut. I will be talking a lot about Superman and all the other characters in the other movies. And even though I may not mention Aquaman and Shazam, I know that there are ties. I know there are things. And I know I trust you, Dave Ethan, and all the others we're excited for the DCU to keep on putting these ties together. And if you guys want my assistance in seeing connections and stuff, you know, in these films, feel free to always ask me about it, even though I may not highlight them. Because, again, I'm open-minded to, you know, at least pointing out certain things. You know, I may not be excited about something based off a trailer. It doesn't mean the movie might not be fantastic. You know what I mean? This is just a trailer, and it was an incomplete trailer at that. James Wan trying to get that to us so that we could, see something with Aquaman. And again, I see what the story is in Aquaman. I see, Orm wanting to. I'm pretty sure he has a good reason to want to take out the surface dwellers. I'm sure Orm is an honorable guy. Just listening to him talk, he's got that charisma. So I see where they're going with it. I see what they're trying to do. I know the CGI kind of lets them down right now because it's not finished. When they have everything down pack, I'm pretty sure it will be quite impactful. I think they've done a pretty good job with some of the CG characters, the sharks, the turtles and stuff. They look real. I could see the realism they're trying to push for, and some of the mythical creatures look pretty good. But again, the CG is not on point in terms of, it still feels in certain places like an extremely virtual world. When you go down to Atlantis, you're watching at the city, it looks extremely virtual. It reminds me of what I saw in the MCU, and that kind of takes me out of the film immediately. And it's not just visual things. Of course, I'm a substance person, and I see substantive things of substance as well that they kind of dilute down, that initially the character was not like that. So these are the things that kind of throw me off for a loop, and it really had me very, very depressed at the end of it all. It kind of knocked the wind out of me, and I watched it 2-3 times to see if I could just kind of will myself into that. It just wasn't happening at the time, and that was really sad, because I can see what the substance of what they're saying is, but I just could not get myself to get pumped for it, and it's okay. I mean, it's all right. A lot of people got pumped for Aquaman, so it doesn't really matter. In the end, my not being pumped for it doesn't mean anything. Hopefully that carries on to the film, and a lot of people are excited about it. Like, I'm happy that the MCU did well with Infinity War. A lot of people were pumped for Infinity War. I was not. So, I'm not just, I'm not like everybody else in many respects. And in this case, I just wasn't pumped. I just was not pumped for Aquaman. I was not pumped for Shazam, And Shazam had some interesting elements to it. There was one moment in Shazam that was truly funny. It was hilarious. I'm not going to say what it is, but it was a statement that what's his name? That Billy Batson said. Billy Batson said one statement, and it was funny. It was funny. I loved it. And I love that Billy Batson's not this little kid. He's actually like a teenager, kind of a teenager. So I kind of like that. I like that Billy Batson. He's smart, and he's kind of street savvy. I like that Billy Batson. So there's certain things in Shazam I actually like that really are amusing to me. And I would like to see how, if the Shazam character of Billy Batson, if he can be street smart at the same time as Billy Batson was. So is he going to be kind of like, or is he going to be oversimplified? So I'm not too sure how, because Billy Batson looks like he's street smart. So is Shazam going to have that street smart in him? Is he going to have that kind of street smart streak in him? And he's going to move, or is he going to be naive? So that's the thing. Or is he going to be a mixture of naive and street smart? Because Billy Batson, he's kind of street smart, So I'm interested to see how they play off Shazam on that. That little twist right there that I just told you, that little nuance, could make Shazam so much better than if they just do him straightforward, as if he's kind of not used to being big, and then they're doing gaffes and gags off of that. You have to have that nuance in there. So I don't know if David Sandberg put that in there, but there was a certain moment in the trailer it was hilarious for me. I laughed at it. It was an awkward moment. It was funny as hell, man. It was funny. I give it to them. That was a funny moment. And I liked how he hits the bigger guys, and then he gets out of there, I like that. And they chase him down. So I like all of that. That was good. That was good. Yeah. And when he's a safe distance away, he's like mugging them. That was funny too. So, you know, there was some aspects in Shazam that I actually thought were genuinely funny. It wasn't just a gaffe moment, you know, situational humor, they call it. So, but there was another one where he actually responded and it was genuine, like it was a genuine response. And he, you know, it wasn't funny to him, you know, and that the funniest moments to me are when the character, it's not funny to the character. Um, it's not funny at all to the character at all, and it's not really a funny situation, but just the way how it plays off. And he literally said something. It's not a slapstick humor at all. Literally, but he, you know, it's funny because he finds it funny, but he's trying to play it off as if, you know, he's trying to play it off as cool. But to him, it's like, he's like, really, dude? Like, really? It's a really, dude kind of moment. And to me, it's funny. It's hilarious. It really is. And it's just there's subtle things that sometimes land. They really land. You know? So, yeah. All right. That's good, man, Dave Ethan, man. Leroy Kong says, hello, sorry I'm late. Great videos. Shazam and Aquaman are going to be great. Yeah, man, you're a positive guy as well, Leroy. And that's good, man. Keep that positivity going, brother. It works. It works. It works. It works. Don't ever go to the dark side, bro. When people want to trick you to the dark side, just be more positive. You know, and it'll work. It works. Yeah, so that's what I got to say. So yeah, there's a little glimmer of hope for me, man. I just need to get out of the depression, I guess, and I'll be okay, I guess. We'll see what happens, man. We'll see what happens. You know, I wasn't hot up for Krypton either. You remember I remember when Krypton, all the ads with Krypton came out. It's only when I saw a scene from Krypton I was like, ooh, and I was I was actually excited for Krypton. What made me excited for Krypton? Something made me excited for Krypton. I think it was one of the promos. They had done a bunch of promos of Krypton. I wasn't interested in them. And then one promo came. It's kind of like with Man of Steel. I was not, you know what's the funny thing, guys? So that you guys understand, I wasn't interested in Man of Steel either. Right? So even when I'm talking about I'm not interested in Aquaman or Shazam or even Wonder Woman at this point in time, that doesn't mean it won't change. It could be just one particular scene or one particular trainer could just get me interested in these movies just like that. I remember for Man of Steel, I didn't care that Zack Snyder was doing a Man of Steel. They called it Man of Steel. It was like another Superman film. I didn't care. It was until a certain trailer where he said to Lois Lane, "It's not an S." That's the trailer where I suddenly got roped into Superman. I didn't care about Superman before that. Okay. And if I'm not mistaken, what was it that got me interested? Oh, Wonder Woman. I wasn't hot up on Wonder Woman either. It was when they put out the Comic-Con trailer on Wonder Woman. I saw her blocking the bullets and shit. That's when I got excited for Wonder Woman. I'll never forget that trailer. You know? So, yeah. So you never know. You just never know. You never know. You know? You never know. You just never know. You know? At present, though, I'm not excited for Aquaman and Shazam. I'll be honest with you. I'm going to be straight up honest with you. But you just never know. There may be a trailer or something that just gets me excited. I may not even be following the stuff in it. Like Black Panther. Black Panther was a movie, again, I was not interested in Black Panther. I was not. None of the trailers, none of the stuff that they showed got me interested in Black Panther. I was like, oh my God. Is when I actually accidentally saw a pirated copy of Black Panther. And the first couple of minutes, I was not into Black Panther. I was like, yeah, right. It was somewhere inside of the movie. I just suddenly was like, wait a minute, this is getting interesting. And they got my attention. That's how I got roped into Black Panther. So yeah, you know, sometimes initially you're not interested in a film. You just don't care about it, right? You know, there's another film, The Accountant. No. I always wanted to see The Accountant from day one. What was the film? There was another film I was not interested in seeing at all. And I got roped in. I got roped in. They roped me in. The trailers got me to want to see that film. I'll tell you now. I'll tell you now. Nah, it wasn't Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Star Wars: The Last Jedi. I always wanted to see that. I always want to see Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Right, Solo. You know, I wasn't interested in Solo. I wasn't interested in Solo. And when I saw Solo, I knew I needed to see Solo. I think something, because I didn't like the actors that they had, and I was watching the guy, this dude, right? You know, so what made me want to see Solo? I think it was a trailer that made me want to see Solo, or was it the trailer, or was it just watching the movie? And I realized Solo was great, but I wasn't hyped on seeing Solo. I was hyped on seeing Blade Runner 2049. Yeah, so you see, not always do trailers do what they're supposed to do with certain people, you know? So you just never know, man. You never know. You never know. Maybe Aquaman is deeper than I thought. And he just kind of put out something to get people's interest. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. David says it's kind of like me before I saw Ramona and Beezus for the first time. Ramona and Beezus? What is that? I don't know what that is. What's Ramona and Beezus? That's interesting. I don't know what Ramona and Beezus is. And I didn't start really appreciating 300 until many years later. I did not like 300. My brother he was madly loved 300. I hated 300. You know, that's strange. It's only many years after I went back and watched 300 and realized, oh, this is how the Persian Empire fell and stuff like that. Oh, it's a movie based on a novel. Okay, cool, cool. But I actually did not like 300. You know, Dawn of the Dead was cool, but I did not like 300. Didn't. Everybody said that's Zack Snyder's best work, and I never thought that way. And then eventually I really watched 300 and really processed it and realized how, you know, it was a good movie, but didn't really like 300. When everybody was raving about 300, I was not raving about 300. I did not like it. So, you know, anyways, folks, I need to go. It's 11:02 in the night, and we started this video probably 4 hours ago. This is a nice long one. So I want you guys to enjoy the rest of your day. You check out my song that's coming out in a couple minutes. All right. The song is called Harmony, and I hope you guys enjoy it. It's a little bit different to what most people think when they think about harmony. You know, it's a little bit different, but all right, man. So on that note, you guys have a great night. God bless you guys, man. All right, have a good one. How do I turn this thing off? Oh, there you go.